Well, good morning there, folks, and welcome to today's special edition of Nuclear Power for Dummies. We know you're not dummies, but, yeah. Excuse me. Alright, well, let's just jump right into things here and get started. Today we're going to be talking about, well, exactly what the name of the show suggests. Nuclear power. Now we're going to start off with this guy here. It's what we like to call the element uranium. And it's a pretty radioactive element, meaning that it will undergo nuclear fission rather easily. Nuclear fission lies at the basis of nuclear power plants. Nuclear fission takes place when one atom splits into two. This process occurs naturally all the time, especially with the element uranium. Since uranium undergoes spontaneous fission, that is, fission without any outside influence, it is the number one candidate for induced fission. Uranium-235 is the most ideal element for production of electricity in nuclear power plants. Now let's take a closer look at this business of fission with uranium-235. If a free neutron collides with the nucleus of a uranium-235 atom, the nucleus will absorb the neutron and become unstable. The atom will split into two lighter atoms, and it will also throw off 2 or 3 neutrons. All of this happens in a matter of picoseconds. The splitting of an atom releases an incredible amount of heat and gamma radiation. That is, radiation made of high-energy photons, or particles of light. The two atoms that result from the fission later release energy of their own as well. The energy released by a single fission comes from the fact that the fission products and the neutrons together weigh less than the original uranium-235 atom. The difference in weight is converted directly to energy at a rate governed by the equation E equals mc squared. As mentioned before, when a uranium-235 atom splits, 2 or 3 neutrons fly off. If there are no other uranium-235 atoms around, then those free neutrons fly into space as neutron rays. However, if the uranium-235 atom is part of a massive uranium, then there are plenty of other uranium-235 atoms nearby for the free neutrons to collide with to cause more fission. The status of the nuclear reactor, the technical term for the containment unit where nuclear fission takes place in a power plant, is determined by how many free neutrons collide with other uranium-235 atoms to create more energy. There can be a critical mass when one of the free neutrons from each fission hits one other uranium-235 atom and causes one other fission. Under this condition, the temperature will stay the same. There can be a subcritical mass when less than one of the free neutrons collides with another uranium-235 atom. Eventually, the power source will run out, and the reactor will cool down. Or there can be a supercritical mass, when more than one of the free neutrons collides with a uranium-235 atom. Under this condition, the reactor will heat up. By changing the shape of the mass of uranium, technicians can control the criticality. Enriched uranium is formed into small pellets about the size of a dime. These pellets are arranged into rods and the rods into bundles. The bundles are submerged in water inside of a pressure vessel. The water serves as a coolant. Engineers control the amount of fission that takes place by lowering and raising other control rods into the vessel. These rods are made of materials that absorb neutrons, and by taking away neutrons, they decrease the amount of fission. The uranium heats the water turns to steam. The steam drives a turbine, which spins a generator to produce power. A concrete structure houses the pressure vessel. That structure is housed in a steel containment vessel. Another outer concrete structure protects the steel structure. Many safety precautions are taken to prevent harmful radiation from escaping the plant. Nuclear power has become very significant in today's society. Over 440 nuclear power plants around the globe, 442 to be precise, provide 14% of the world's electricity. That's 7/50ths for all you math-minded folks. Now, just for kicks, if you do the math, it's around one nuclear power plant for every 131,880 square miles, assuming that the Earth has a land area of about 57.5 million square miles. Now, the U.S. is a pretty nuclear country. 104 of those 442 nuclear power plants reside in the U.S. They provide 20% of the U.S.'s energy. That is a pretty whopping number, as it is equal to 1/5. Now, France and Lithuania top us all off in the nuclear energy usage. They derive a whopping 75% of their electricity from nuclear power plants. There are mixed feelings over whether or not nuclear power is good for today's society. Many are staunch defenders of nuclear power and say that it has many advantages. Others, well, they are not big fans. We'll first be looking at some of the advantages of nuclear power, and for that, we hand it over to Mr. Grant Boer, a long-time expert in nuclear power.
Nuclear power plants don't take up very much space. This allows them to be built in already developed areas so that the power does not have to be sent over long distances. It doesn't pollute in a very direct way. It is cleaner than many other forms of energy production because it does not release greenhouse gases. Another advantage of nuclear power is that nuclear energy is by far the most concentrated form of energy, so it can be produced in large quantities over short periods of time. The possibility for long-term production is great since new reactors can be made when old ones wear out. Oil reserves and other fossil fuels are likely to run out at some point. One truckload of uranium can supply as much energy as 1,000 truckloads of coal. Although people fear the radioactive material produced, radiation has been part of our environment for a very long time, and it can even be beneficial to our health in moderate amounts. And overall, nuclear power production is safe.
And since this show is a very unbiased show, we will also be looking at the disadvantages. And from that, we hear from Mr. Joel Rao. Now, he's on the phone with us, and it's a little bit of a bad connection, so listen close.
There are a few major disadvantages to nuclear power. First, the construction of a nuclear power plant is a lengthy process. From planning to finishing touches, it can take 15 to 25 years to build one plant. Another main concern is that the rather limited supply of uranium is forecast to run out in about 50 years. Also, the danger of a nuclear power plant failing is always present. The more power plants are built, the higher the probability of having a nuclear meltdown, which is disastrous to the surrounding environment. Another concern is the disposal of radioactive waste. This waste is extremely dangerous and has to be stored safely for several thousand years. Finally, nuclear energy can threaten national security. Nuclear power plants could be targeted by terrorists, or the technology can be used in the making of dangerous nuclear weapons.
Thank you for calling in, fellows. I couldn't have said it better myself. And that is it for today's show.